Hey everyone, this is Christos Skutte, and I'm so excited today to share with you episode 1 of the 2020 Leadership Show. Now, some of you guys, I think many of you guys probably don't know me. And if you're curious about who I am and why do I call it the 2020 Leadership Show, I just want to take a couple minutes. I want to introduce myself. My name is Christos Skutte. I'm originally from South Africa. Been living here in the United States for the last 19 years. I'm married to the love of my life. Her name is Faith for 16 years now. And God has given us a miracle boy, a miracle child. His name is Blaze. He's now 1 year and 4 months old. I have been fortunate and passionate about working with leaders for the last 15 years. I'm an executive coach, and I've had the privilege of working with Fortune 10 executives, leaders at the FBI. I have the privilege of teaching at MIT every now and then. But all my clients are high achievers, and they are leaders where they go. Why having the 2020 Leadership Show right now? And just to be very authentic, I feel like this is something that God's been putting on my heart. I feel like there's so many leaders that feels like they're isolated right now. You know, whether you're in a leadership position and you feel like you're by yourself, you're carrying this by yourself. Maybe you feel like you're struggling to get your team to connect right now because of virtual. You might be at a place where you struggle to find the balance between work and home because you used to be in the car for a while before you got home, and you're trying to find that balance. You feel like you don't have the capacity to handle what's on your plate right now. And you're just trying to figure out how to connect and be more effective with your time and your efforts. You know, I'm just so aware how leaders are struggling with this right now. You might say, Christopher, but I'm not a leader. Well, listen, the reality is leadership starts all with yourself, self-leadership. You might be a CEO of a company. You might have 6 people. You might have 400 people you're leading. But here's the reality. You are not alone. And I saw this, you know, about 5 months ago with COVID starting. I just saw this need for leaders to be in community. And we actually created something called Lead to Succeed. Within 3 days, 70 leaders signed up from 7 different countries. And the 2020 Leadership Show is for this reason. 2020 stands for the year 2020, right now. 2020 also means clear vision, clarity. As leaders, we need clarity right now. And my promise to you is to help you to grow each week in a 20-minute show to get clarity around where you are right now as a leader and how can you lead the people through this change that we're going through. It's really, really my promise and my commitment to you to provide and bring guests to the show each week that we can talk about stuff that's applicable to what you're experiencing right now. And secondly, some weeks I will maybe just share some things that's on my heart or things I've been sharing with my clients that's been really helpful because I deeply care about you. I love you. I deeply care about your development and growth. We need leaders right now. We need leaders at home. We need leaders everywhere we go. We need leaders that stand up and also feel like they're not alone. This is something that's driving me every morning when I get out of bed. I'm just thinking about leaders. And I believe we are going to get through this crazy time we're going through right now and just get stronger through that. So that's my promise. I'm here to support you. So episode 1. Here's the reality. This is one thing that I do know about leaders right now. Leaders are overwhelmed with Zoom meetings, with this meeting, with that meeting, and they struggle to focus. We actually stop focusing on what matters most because we bombarded with so many things. I have the privilege today to have a guest here. I'm going to bring Matt in right now. Hey, Matt.
Hey.
Matt, this is so cool to have you on the first episode.
That was an awesome intro, by the way. I love everything that is represented by this, that you're bringing. It's just phenomenal. And to be the first one.
Man. Yeah, man. And I have to tell you, your background is the best. We're sitting here in his gym at home. Can it get better than that?
It's my gym office.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, Matt, if you just give me a second, let me just introduce you. You know, Matt is a very, very dear friend of mine. I actually had the privilege of having him as a client many years ago. But he's a leader that I deeply, deeply respect. Matt actually, I mean, he has a long story, but I just very shortly share what I think is very important. 2005, Matt created a company. And he actually sold the company last year. But through those 14 years, Matt, as a CEO of this very successful company, learned what it means to be a good leader and a not that good leader. So much so.
In the reverse order, but
yeah. So much so that he wrote a book. He wrote a book called Empower Then Lead, because he realized in the beginning, as a leader, he was so controlling and he didn't really empower his people. And the moment he let go of that, everything changed. Matt is actually in Ottawa, Canada. Matt, thanks for being here, man.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.
So let's jump in. You know, like I said, again, let's look. We got 20 minutes here together. I think the first question I'm going to ask you, Matt, and I'll put this on here. What do you think should be on a leader's mind right now? These are really crazy times. And I know it's difficult to pick one thing, but what's one thing that comes to your mind that leaders need to be thinking about?
Yeah, it is difficult to pick one thing, but what comes up for me is the need for real intense focus in this time. Focus on what really matters. So from a leadership perspective, if you're leading a company or leading a team, what is the actual impact that you want to make? So for example, you're leading a company and you want to grow the business. Maybe you're struggling during these times. I would want to look at all the different things that you're doing, all the different things that your company is doing, and think about what actually matters for advancing us forward. I think there's a big issue, especially these days, people working at home. Maybe you can hear my kids above me. They sound like elephants right now, actually, very loud. And my point is there's lots of distractions, lots going on. People are on Zoom calls all day long, working through often really transactional, operational matters. People have emails coming in constantly. I know a lot of people devote an hour in the morning to emails, and then they're on the phone all day long. And I would ask, are you doing any meaningful work during that time? Are you having meaningful interactions with your team? Oftentimes what happens is we just get in this rhythm of just doing things, but not really doing the right things. So I'd say, look at everything you're doing. Think about what does success look like for me as a leader? And then try and match up what you're doing, your schedule, all the things crossing your desk. Does that match with achieving success? And be pretty aggressive with it.
That's really good. You know, because, you know, as I'm listening to you, I think the question comes up for me is, well, it's very clear to me that our world has changed, you know, because of technology. There's different types of load. It's very hard to be focused right now. It's just really, really hard. What would you say is standing in our way right now to get to that place of focus and feeling centered?
Honestly, I think it's very often extremely simple. It's saying no to more. I think it's not that we're saying yes to too much, but often by default, that's what happens. Your day's filled with things that aren't actually achieving what you want to achieve. So more needs to be cut out of what you're doing. And so, for example, you could go an entire week, let's say you lead a team of people, and you have conversations with them most days, maybe long conversations about this business matter, about this operational matter, and not actually connect, not actually have a half an hour just chat like you used to around the water cooler. How are things going? What's on your mind right now? How can I help you? Those things are absent, and instead you're spending all day long having these operational transactional conversations with people. Those things are supposed to support the business, support the impact you want to make, but they can actually, if we let it, they'll actually become everything that we're doing. So I call it, I've seen a lot these days. I almost see it as playing work in a sense. You're doing all these activities that are become your work. But at the end of the day, you look back and you say, what did I do today? I was on the phone all day. I know I had a bunch of emails, and that's your whole day. So you're going to have to say no to some things and become a lot more aggressive.
So where do you start? Because I think what you're saying is 100% right. And I think a lot of people watching this or listening to this might be feeling like, yeah, man, I totally agree with you, but I don't even know where to start. Because, I mean, I feel like we're just getting out of the survival mode, or maybe we're still in survival mode. I mean, where do you start? Where do you start with that?
Yeah, let's get rid of status meetings. Just get rid of them. Let's look at how we can do that over text so that it's not blocking a half hour or hour of people's days. Get rid of calls that are substantially about one person sharing and everyone else listening.
Yeah.
So focus your calls. If you're going to book a meeting, get everyone together. They're all at home. You're getting everyone on the phone at one time. That should feel like a bigger deal than I think it does. In the old world, you just say, oh, let's all walk to the boardroom. No big deal. But now it's maybe we've got someone that is doing some really intense creative work and they're pulling out of that just for this meeting. So let's think creatively about how else can we distribute this information. Maybe it's recording a video and sharing it with your team. There are plenty of different ways of doing that so that you're not bombarding people with meetings all day long. So I would say that would be the biggest real practical step. Got to cut back on the meetings. You can't be in meetings. You can't be, especially in transactional meetings, operations. Half the day is too much for me. I think a little bit here and there maybe is okay, but I would be really aggressive about, if you're meeting, it should be because we're having a conversation, or we're brainstorming together, trying to solve problems together. And that to me is a lot more meaningful of an interaction to actually get together for a meeting. So less meetings is probably my biggest point.
That's really, really good. Again, what do you believe is for leaders right now standing in their way to get to that place? Because I think they hear what you're saying and they're like, yeah, I totally get it. But there's something still holding them back to actually make that change.
Well, I think in some cases it could be an old mindset of, if you're used to the old world of being in the same office, being able to be a micromanager, a control freak. You talked about that from the intro. That's how I started. So I started a company. I was really good at the work itself, but leadership, that's not something I was that familiar with. What does that look like? How can I set up a team to be really successful? So I stayed in that mode for many years. And that's often what the path of a control freak, in the sense that you're good at the work. Now you've got a team. So I'm going to just keep telling them what to do because I know what to do. And so I would say to consider that there needs to be a shift to your mindset about controlling everything that people do. You can't look over people's shoulders anymore. A lot of people were forced into this. So now I'm going to have to think about, how can I set up my team to succeed and not be doing the work myself? So how can I put my team in the driver's seat instead of driving, or maybe I'm a backseat driver. In both cases, they have to be driving the car. So it's switching your mindset to it's actually about them. It's not about me. Now I'm setting them up for success. I'm doing whatever I can to help invest in them. And now I've got a clearer schedule that connects to the meetings, because I was in the past world, I would have been hosting all the meetings, doing all the talking in the meetings. That doesn't work. At that point, I'm in the driver's seat. That's the old control freak world. I've got to be setting up other people to doing the talking, taking ownership. It's just a different mindset.
Yeah, it's so true. It all starts with your mindset and how you look at things. I once heard, I think it's Tony Robbins that said, people change because either of desperation or inspiration.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most people change because of desperation. Change is hard, okay, because you're used to doing things a certain way. What would you say to a leader right now that really wants to change and be more focused, but just feels overwhelmed and continue going back to his or her own default of doing things? What will you tell them?
I'd say to follow that path forward in your mind. So if you're in the middle of every detail and you're thinking, I can't change this. Mm-hmm. First of all, that was my story. And I hit a wall trying to grow the business. I couldn't take vacation. I felt like I couldn't take vacation. So follow that forward. The next 20 years, that's your life. You're going to be insanely busy, not really be able to scale and grow anything, not really be able to make the impact you want. Is that the life you want? Think about that. Mm-hmm. And now what might seem impossible to transition away from that, you have to think, I don't want that life. That's not good for me. That's not good for my team. No one even wants to work in that environment. Mm-hmm. So let's follow that through and think maybe there's a different way, and open up your mind to the possibilities that I would say very bluntly, what if you're the problem? What if you're the problem? Because you're the one probably making the decisions. You could be the one with all the information in your head. And as we know, knowledge is power. So you're holding on to that power. Of course, you're going to make great decisions relative to others. You're the one that has all the context. So it's about thinking how I can set them up for success and really switching your mindset. I'm not going to focus on controlling everything anymore. I'm going to be very aggressive about trying to set up other people to succeed. Just a totally different approach.
Yeah, this is so true, and it's so hard to do.
Sure.
Right now. And I think we all, when people are actually going through a difficult time, we go back to our old default ways. Yes. We go to our ways that is most comfortable to us. So I want to do this. I know we already talked about this a little bit, but at the end of the show, I always want to make it very practical. Sure. How do we apply this? That's the question I want to ask you. Let's talk about a couple things for a leader right now that might be listening, watching this, and just feel like, wow, okay, I get this, Matt, but where do I start? I know you already talked about the mindset, but kind of take us through a couple steps that you believe. And I know also, I mean, with your book, Empower Then Lead, I highly recommend. I mean, you talk about this so much in the book itself. So there are more resources there, but take us through, how do we apply this right now? This is you, I don't know, 5, 6 years, 7 years ago.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, yeah, I hear what this dude is saying, but seriously, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what will you say?
Let's assume that your mind is open to even considering it from a mindset perspective.
Yeah.
But that can be a stumbling point that stops anything I'm about to say. So I'd say if that's you and you think, I think that's impossible, then I'd say check out my book, or think about, fast forward your life, what it's going to look like. Let's say you're past the mindset and you think maybe there's a chance I could do something. So practical steps, I'm going to connect my main 2 points that we talked about. First of all, about doing less or focusing on the right things. Mm-hmm. So first of all, look at your schedule, look at it from last week if you want. just go into your agenda, look at everything you did, look at some of the emails you sent, just do a sampling and think about some common themes. Okay, it looks like I am the driver's seat on these 20 things. Now let's take 1 to 5 of them, and what could I set someone else up to do? And it could be delegating, but it also could be eliminating. What are things that I can just say no to that aren't really necessary, which will help everyone. So we just focus on the right things. So let's say, what are 5 things, looking at my schedule, looking at my past activity, 5 things that I can get rid of either by delegating or eliminating. And now I've got a little bit more time. Who on my team, who am I going to start to really invest in to help set them up? So this person, maybe they're in sales and I'm very much micromanaging the sales world. What information could I share with them? Maybe I have a conversation with them. How could I help you? What do you think you're missing, where you could have a little more context? Have that conversation, now start to invest there. So it's a mix of, I got to cut some things out, and now I got to invest in the right area. And that, if you keep going back and forth with those 2 things, sooner or later you'll notice I've created a bit of a different world here, where I'm not in the middle of so much. Yes. I'm investing in people, and it's getting easier as it goes along, and my team's getting energized.
So it's fascinating. I know we just have 2 more minutes here, that I want to go, but it's fascinating what you're just saying. So I'm hearing 2 things. There is a piece of learning to say no to certain things. Yes. And there's a piece to have clarity around what you say yes to.
Correct.
What you focus on more. So those both go at the same time.
Yes. And if you say, oh, I don't have time to actually set up my team, see the piece number 1, I got to eliminate something, because this is the future you want to create for you and your team, for your business. So you got to go back and forth.
Yeah, it's amazing, Matt. I'm a big believer. I always talk about, you need to slow down to speed up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things I want to tell leaders out there right now. One of the most important things you can do is to create space to slow down. And what I mean by that is, even if you have to take 30 minutes today or 15 minutes today, and just slow down, look at the things that you are doing right now, write them down. What do you need to say no to? Mm-hmm. And then secondly, what are the most important things you should be focusing on? Because I totally agree with you. We in a time right now, we're so bombarded with meetings and different things, and leaders are struggling to get back to focus. Mm-hmm. But if you're not going to do something radically about it, it's not going to change by itself.
Correct.
Matt, thank you so much, man. Thank you. I know we can talk for 5 more hours about this, but again, hopefully this was helpful to somebody out there. Again, highly recommend Matt's book, Matt Blakely, and the book is Empower Then Lead. I'm excited, guys. Next week, we'll be back interviewing somebody else around very specific things you are facing right now as a leader. So with that being said, we'll see you guys. Cheers.